What's up, people?
What's up?
He'll come in. The door doesn't lock itself, unfortunately. All right. Um, Man, today is the last lecture. Saturday is the last class of Module 1. And you all know pretty much the fundamentals of HTML and CSS after Saturday, so that's great. And then you'll get a much deserved break, and then you'll have to do it again 5 more times. um, so let's get started. Okay. So today I sent a screenshot of what we are building. And we're going to, I'm not sharing my screen. So I sent a screenshot of what we're building, which is the kind of a parody of the GitHub website. And we'll just start building it and kind of learn what we need to learn as we go. And today what we're trying to learn is positioning. So we've learned to position things and move things around, and in particular we learned some cool ways to do that with Flexbox, but we haven't learned
All right, come on, boys.
We haven't learned some of the like special ways that you may need to position things. The primary thing being like if you don't want it to move when you scroll. So when we look at this website here that I gave an example of, the nav bar staying at the very top, the footer staying at the bottom, assuming that's what you want. Usually you want the nav bar to stay at the top. You usually don't really want the footer to stay at the bottom, but you might. And then like this like chat button, you're probably all super used to that just being like at the very bottom of a website all the time, no matter where you are on the website, no matter like where you scrolled or whatever. So that's some of the things we'll be learning today. So let's get cracking. The first thing that you all should be quite used to at this point is we will open VS Code. We will go to the folder where we want to do our coding, which for me is always the OK Coders folder. So I go to curriculum, Module 1, and then today's day 7, so I need to make that folder.
Is there a setting that makes opening VS Code not open your most recent file?
I'm not sure. Whenever I just like close it fully,
Okay.
it's so like if I like have no other stuff open and I open it, this is what I get by default. I'm not sure. So it's just like even when you do that, are you on like Windows or are you on Mac?
I'm on Windows. But yeah, when I open it from being completely closed, it opens the last file I was working on.
Interesting. Okay, I'm not sure on that one. But if you like say that you want to open a folder, will it just keep that file open or something?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I might have to look at that one in person or have a mentor look at that in person. I'm not sure off the top of my head.
No worries, not a big deal.
Okay. All right, so I've got day 7 created here, and then I'm going to make today's actually a special day because we're going to make 2 files. Because we haven't quite learned the cool, the internet is like a bunch of links. Things are like linked together. So far, we've only done an Ahref with a hash which just like links to the current page roughly. So we'll actually see what it takes to link pages. So I'm gonna make a home.html file. Tab. And then I will make a contact.html file. And then I'll just make one CSS file. I'll just call this index.css. Okay, I'm gonna start with home HTML. And add some HTML to the doc. And I still have ChatGPT on. It's actually going to be helpful. I'm going to leave it on today just so we can see it. It'll be helpful for today when I'm trying to generate some fake content. Okay, so I've got my head with title home. We'll call this GitHub or fake GitHub. And then we've got a body, and I'm just going to delete what it generated there. And then we need to link our index.css file. So we'll do link. And then you can see Copilot is recommending relation style sheet. And then href, it's saying style CSS, which is just making that up. That's not actually a file. And then I don't know what type text CSS is. We don't normally do that. So I'm just gonna delete that. But we do want the href, and then we want it to index CSS. And then let's add a footer. Oh, I love that. Copyright 2021 fake GitHub Inc. Funny. So we'll add that. And then I'm going to add a class and just call the class footer. I could also do ID footer. All right, and then let me put this CSS over here, and I want to style the footer. So we'll do our footer, and then it's like making up styles for us. May or may not be useful. I don't want any of this, but I'm gonna ignore that. So I do want a background color of black. And then I want the footer to be like a height of 200 pixels, I think. We'll see. So save that. All right. So just getting a basic structure going. So CSS and then HTML file with a footer linked to our style sheet. So it's usually kind of the minimum we need to get in there to get rolling. And then we can open this with live server. So we just make sure to click on the page and then hit go live and then open that up. All right. Okay, really good looking site so far. So we have a black background. I have text in there, right? We had that funny copyright fake GitHub. What is that there? Like, why can't we see that?
Because it's black, it's the same color. Oh, wait, no.
Yeah, no, that's right.
Okay.
It's there, but it's black. The color of the font's black and the background's black too. So yeah, we can't see it. So we can fix that, right? So we can say, hey, I mean, there's so many ways we could do this, but let's say we do like a class and we can do like font white, or we could just do a class called white if we wanted to, for example. But font white seems good. And then I'll go and say, hey, make the font white class have color white, right? So color is how you change font text color, and then background color is how you change the background color of the whole box. And so now we should see, not that. Oh, I didn't save. Okay, cool. All right, so copyright 2021 fake GitHub, 200 pixel footer. I think that's maybe too big. Let's go with 100. And all right, now we have our first challenge here. So we want this to look better. We want it to be a footer, and we want it to be stuck at the bottom all the time. So we always want the footer to be on the page. No matter where you are scrolling on the page, we want the footer to be at the bottom. So what do I do to accomplish that? So we just want this whole thing stuck at the bottom.
Align bottom 0.
I'm not sure what that would do exactly.
Well, it needs to come out of the body or no?
Did you say align? What was it? Yeah, so it does need to so okay, so what's the normal, so there's a property. Oh, I'm realizing now that I really can't ask you guys this stuff because you guys didn't get to do the pre-work. So this is this is just like a normal lesson where you don't know everything, and then I can't like interactively teach you. So my bad on that. So
That's
the
what
homework.
I thought. Oh, sorry.
You're good. Go ahead.
No, like when you asked why couldn't we see it, I was thinking, oh wait, we can't see it because I mean, I thought the right answer at first, but that's why I was second guessing myself because I'm like, hold on, that's not the footer up there. So is it supposed to be in the body?
Yeah, sorry. So I'm I gotta switch gears here on how I'm gonna teach this. So there's a new concept that you guys haven't seen yet that you'll be doing for homework today. And there's a property called position. So by default, the position property on all elements is static. Yeah, sorry, I got a question.
So would the position be like relative? I saw
So
that somewhere.
yeah. So there's a position static, which is the default position, which is just like everything we've learned so far. That's what things get by default, position static. So they like, you know, you're either a block or you're an inline, and you like move yourself to fit on the page based off the other content on the page. Then there's another property that's called position relative, which means relative to its normal position on the document. So you can have something like right now, this footer is position static. So if I apply to it, so I'm going to click on it, and if I say, hey, this element, the footer element, I'm going to make your position static. That's the default. So like it doesn't change it in any way to apply that type. It's just where it normally is. We can change the position property to be relative, and that also doesn't immediately change it. So it's relatively positioned to where it normally is, but we haven't modified that position. So there's additional properties that we have available to us. whenever
Jack,
we're
the
trying
screen,
to.
the text on your screen is tiny.
Thank you. Why isn't that? Oh, hold on. Let me get out of this. Is that better? Zoom this in too.
Yes,
All right.
way better.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So I've set this position to relative, which makes it a relatively positioned element on the page, but I didn't use any of the modifiers that are available to me to like adjust or move the position. So the modifiers that are available to me when we're using a non-statically positioned element are pretty simple: top, left, right, and bottom. So those are properties that you use when you're trying to relatively position something. And it's simply like, hey, I want to relatively position this thing. If you're saying top, for example, you would say something like 10 pixels. And that just like pushes it down 10 pixels. And if you wanted to say left, it would just, it left 10 pixels, it would move it like a force from the left to the right 10 pixels. Sort of like margin. So when you say, hey, margin top 10 pixels, it like pushes it down. It's very similar. So we can do that. We can say, hey, top 10 pixels, and notice it just like moved down relative to where it normally is. It just moved down. So you won't, I don't find myself doing that a lot in this way. So you will use position relative, but you often are not then like moving that element that you applied position relative to. Just know it, that you can, but you're not going to be doing it very often. There's another position type. So we've seen static, we've seen relative. There's another position type called fixed that you will use quite often. And fixed is basically relative to the entire screen. So relative to the viewport. So think of like this, the viewport is this whole thing here. All right, so if I like make this smaller, like this is the viewport, like the whole thing. And so we can set our position to be fixed relative to the viewport, basically. So fixed. Let me get rid of top. So I can say, hey, I want this footer fixed. I want the position to be fixed. And then I can say, I want it to be basically at the bottom of the viewport. So I can say bottom 0 pixel. So it just like moved it. So when we were dealing with relative and we said top, it was like moving it 10 pixels down. So it was like a force sort of moving it like margin moves it. When we use position fixed, we're basically saying where we want the bottom of the box to be. So here's the box here. And the bottom is this, and the right is this, and the top is this, and the left is this. And relative to the viewport, I can say where I want it to be. So right now I'm saying I want it at the very bottom of the viewport. But I could also say I want it 10 pixels from the bottom of the viewport, or 100 pixels from the bottom of the viewport. So you can see it's basically creating 100 pixels between the bottom of the viewport and the bottom of the element and putting it there. So if I said like, this is kind of silly, But I could say left 0 pixels, right 0 pixels, top 0 pixels. And it's kind of fighting with itself because it's not a super tall box. But with this style, bottom left right 0 pixels, it's like putting the left box all the way, left side of the box all the way to the left, right side of the box all the way to the right, and the bottom at the bottom. I actually haven't really tried to set all 4 at once, and so like setting top to 0 pixels like just forced it to the top. And since it's not like a full size of the viewport, it had to like pick one basically.
Well, it's not going order of importance. Well, the latest direction, since that top one was the last one you put in.
That's a good question. Let me add. So I can. No, it seems like top is taking precedence. I don't know. That's a cool thing to look up. Like, why, if you set top and bottom, does it pick top? I don't want to derail the class going down that rabbit hole, because you normally aren't going to position something like to take up the whole viewport like that. But yeah, that could be something cool to look into. Okay, so for our footer, if we wanted to be stuck at the bottom, basically, this is the way that we can do that. We can position and fix it, and then just specify where we want the bottom left and right to be on the screen. And so now if we had a bunch of content on the screen, so let's go ahead and do that just so we can see it. So there's this concept called lorem ipsum, which is just like filler text that you'll see some people use. I was hoping Copilot would give me more. Oh, there we go. So if you type lorem and then tab, I guess there's like a VS Code built-in thing that'll do it. So it just generated a bunch of filler text for me. So I'm going to copy a few of these paragraphs to fill up the page with content. So I'm just kind of pasting this p tag over and over. And then notice like our footer is not stuck to the bottom. That's because I was applying the styles directly in the browser, which like every time we refresh the page, the styles I did in the browser go away. So I need to add that back. So for the footer, we'll say bottom 0 pixels, right 0 pixels, and left 0 pixels. And then what is the other thing I'm missing here? So I did bottom right left, but it's still not stuck to the bottom. What's the other
Position
thing
fixed.
Good. So those properties, top, left, right, bottom, like they don't have any effect unless you change the position to be not static. All right. So notice now we got the footer stuck to the bottom. Okay, and this is another important thing. So I've got a bunch of P tag text here. And I can scroll. So I have enough P text to make the body of the document larger than the viewport. So it lets me start scrolling. But notice that there's like text behind the footer. So this paragraph here is behind the footer, and then there's another paragraph below it that's also behind the footer. So what happens when we position something as not static? It no longer is like on the, like whenever we make it so that it's like position fixed, it's no longer like on the page. It's no longer going to move things around it. It's just going to like go on top of things basically. And so if you don't want your content to be covered, then you typically, there's a few ways to do this, but for a footer, I'll typically add like margin to the bottom of the document. The size of my footer is like one hacky way to do it. So what we could do is say, hey, for the body of the document, let's do a margin bottom of our footer size is 100 pixels. So we might just want a little bit of a gap, so we could do something like 120 pixels, for example. And then when we scroll, we can see that our body is adding this margin there so that our content's getting pushed up. So when we get to the bottom of the document, there's that like space to put to, like we have more room to scroll basically so that we can see everything. All right, so that's position fix. It allows us to fix a particular element to be at a particular spot on the page. Very useful for, like, you'll see this mainly for navs, right? So if you go to a site, well, this one, yeah, so this one, notice when I scroll, you don't often see footers stuck to the page just because you don't usually really need that. But you'll notice the nav as I scroll, oh, it did something fancy. Cool. That's new. So like notice as I scrolled, it like kind of collapsed, but it's still staying at the top of the page as I scroll. So it's fixed to the top 0 pixels so that it just always stays there. Okay, back to our fake GitHub. All right, so the next thing I want to do is you've been to websites that'll have like a chat bot that'll try to talk to you, and or like, let me help you. And that'll be typically at the bottom right. So how do you guys think we could add like a chat bot to the bottom right of this site? So let me just add to the page. Oh yeah, I wanted to show you all, there's something called Font Awesome. So like, you go to websites and icons are super popular, like just they're littered all over the website, you know. This one doesn't have very many, but for example, like this search magnifying glass at the top right there, it's like an icon. And so typically when you're working on something, you'll have like a like library of icons available to you. And one of those is font. This is a bunch of different like icon libraries out there, a bunch of different ways to do that. When we get to React, there's like a particular library that we'll use for like all of our stuff. But for just getting started and just like basic HTML and CSS, there's this Font Awesome, which technically you're supposed to sign up for to use them. But it's free. And it's just like a huge library of stuff. So they've got emojis and you can just go and find whatever you want. So Face Vomit, they want you to pay for, but you can use Face Smile for free. So there's just all these different types. And then there's like different formats of how they look, like regular versus solid versus light, etc. So this is something we can use to just like quickly add fonts to our website. And the way that you add them, let me go to the docs. So this is what you do as a developer a lot, is read documentation on how to set something up. So I go to the docs and these are all different frameworks that are out there for building web apps. React is the one that we're going to learn. But the way that you do it is you add a link to the top of your site, which I have a link for, and I'll use it. But then when you want to add an icon, you just simply add this attribute here. So you say, you use the I tag, and then you just add a class, and you say this is Font Awesome Solid. That's the style of icon that you want, and then Font Awesome User is the icon you want. So you apply two different classes basically, and then you get that icon. So I have this from previous class. So the way that you add it is with this script, and then you get this href. So similar to how we would like link in our own CSS. This is similar to that, but though this is technically a JavaScript script, not like a CSS file. But I'm going to copy this into the head of our page that we're working on. So I say, hey, it's very similar to a link, but this is technically JavaScript. So I'm saying script, and then I give it the source, which is this, like I had signed up previously for free, and then they give you the URL that you're supposed to use that's associated with your free account. So that's what this URL is. You can see it's linking to a .js file. And so, yeah, we just add that and save it. And then we can start using those classes. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to do, let me close this real quick. I'm going to do I and then class equals ChatGPT is trying to help me. Let me go back to their icons. And we can search for like chat maybe. Yeah, so comment. So we want to use this one. They actually give you, so we're doing it in HTML and they give you the link here. So FA solid, FA comment. So we add that one. So they gave me a link to copy that, and I'll just copy that in. Okay. Back to our fake GitHub and scroll down. And notice we've got that cool chat icon showing up, right? All right, so if we want, so right now this is just position, the default position is what? The default position type.
Static.
Static, yeah. So when it's static, it just shows up on the page in the normal way it shows up. And in this case, you can see it's just this icon that's just showing up here right after this p tag. So the p tag's a block level element, and then we add the icon, and then it just shows up. It's an inline element. It's just kind of showing up there on the page. All right, so if we want this to just be stuck to the bottom right, now we don't want it to be conflicting with the footer. So we kind of want it like right here, just kind of stuck right there. So what do you guys think? So we're going to use fixed for the position. And then, so the only other things we need to mess with are top, bottom, right, or left. So does anybody have a guess for what we might do with those properties? And a hint is we only need 2 of them. We don't need all 4. So one of the ones we'll use is bottom. So if we want it to be here, about how far away is that from the bottom?
120.
Yeah, it's like 120 pixels roughly. You don't, I mean, I don't expect you to know. It's just you just guess and then you just move it around till it looks right until it looks right. So yeah, let's do that. So we'll say let's add a class as we'll just call the class comment, or actually we'll just call it chat. So new class that we applied to that icon called chat. And then so we'll add that class chat, and then we'll say we'll just start with bottom, and we'll say bottom 120 pixels. And saved. So it looks like it's in the same spot, right? But we'll click on this. Oh, what else did I? Well, it is in the same spot. What else do I need to do? Position fixed. Good. All right. So it is sort of still in the same spot. But now keep in mind, like it's not moving anything. Nothing else is moving it around. It's going to sit there. And so it's like the content is going to like overflow with it. Now stuff that is like position fixed, like when we are like non-statically positioning something, it'll always typically show up on top of other stuff. But imagine that you've got more than one thing positioned there. Like we could within our code, we could like position 2 things in that same spot. There's actually like a third dimension. So there's like X and Y. There's also Z. And what that allows us to do is decide what shows up on top. So the higher the Z index is what it's called, the like closer it is to you. And so like it'll basically sit on top of things that are in the same spot. So we only have to, you don't have to deal with that too much, but if we needed to, for some reason, if we had 2 positioned elements there, notice as I like move the page around, our fixed stuff is moving with the viewport. But yeah, let's add like another icon here. So we could do what was together? We could do one of these FA regulars instead of solid. And then we'll name this chat 2. And we'll make another class. And then we'll just apply left of 2 pixels. Okay, so notice we've got 2 icons here, and this one is on top of that other one. So here's the solid one, here's the regular one. If we wanted the regular one to be on top of the solid one, then we just need to set its z-index to be higher. And so we can say z-index, and then it's usually just a number. So you can say like usually I just type like a really tall number and it will work. I'm actually not sure why that's not changing it.
Will you actually be able to see the change if they're the same color? Like, is it a clear background for the one that has the white inside interior?
I guess that like border right there is just, yeah. I think you're right. Yeah, let me change the color. So I think we can probably just change the color by, so let's see this one. There we go. Okay. So you can just, in this case, this icon, we can change the color of it with like the text color basically. So yeah, you're right. I was thrown off a little bit by that. So, okay. So now we can see that we have a z-index, which is just like, you know, from like 0 to however big you want it to be. It can also be negative. So I've got one z-index that's 999, and then the other one is 99. And so the solid one is lower than the outlined one, and we can see, I don't know how well you can see that, but you can see the blue is on top of the solid one now. But if I switch these, if I made this one higher, now we can see it's back to being on top. So you can kind of dictate how you want stuff to overlap, if they are overlapping with the z-index. Okay. All right, so the whole point though is, let me get rid of this. I actually like this non-solid one more. Okay, so if we want, let's go back to this. Okay, so if we want this chat, the solid chat thing right here to be over here, what do you guys think we need to do? So we set bottom, and now we need to set one other property.
Right?
Right, yeah. So we can, this is our chat, and we can say bottom 120 pixels and then right something like 20 pixels, for example. So now it's just kind of stuck at the bottom right there. So we've got, so think about this. Here's the icon, it's a box, right? So it's just, it looks like a circle with a thing, but it's a 16 by 16 box. And what we're saying is we want the bottom of that box to be position fixed 120 pixels from the bottom of the viewport. And then we want the right of the box to be, I think I said 20 pixels from the right. So it's just kind of putting it there and attaching to the bottom and the right. And if we scroll down, we can kind of see the box model showing us like 120 pixels on the bottom, 20 pixels on the right, and then 16 by 16. And that's how it's showing up and staying in that spot. Okay. Position fix is like the most important one to really get nailed down. Is there any? So we say position fix, and then you decide, typically you're deciding on like one position, like very bottom, very top, or you're doing like bottom and left, or like bottom and right, or like top and right, or top and left. Like usually you're just messing with two of the sides at a time to get something positioned. So any questions about position fixed? Okay. If this is confusing to you, hopefully the homework will help some of it click. All right, so let's build out some more to this site. So let's add a, we've got a footer, let's add a nav. Let's not use that. And let's add so we'll add a link to our contact page. Let's add a logo. So I think there should be. I don't see the, oh, here we go. So they don't have GitHub. Oh yeah, they do. Okay, here we go. Here's GitHub. Okay, we'll add the GitHub icon. And then I want to add this bell. Okay. All right, there's our nav so far. We want it to be black background, and we want it to be probably about 50 pixels high. So I'm going to add a class just called nav for now, and start adding some things to it. So nav, we'll do background, color, black. And we'll do height of 50 pixels. And then we want it stuck to the top in this case. So basically the opposite of the footer. So what do you guys think I would do for that?
position. Top,
Position fix.
okay, it's still fixed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we want it stuck to the very top of the screen, like stuck to the viewport. And then now we just want to, so we're saying, hey, we're going to define where this box should be now. And so I have position fixed, but where do we want the box to be relative to the viewport? Like, where do we want the top of the box to be relative to the viewport?
When you do just the opposite of what you did in the footer, so you do top 0 pixels and then right, left 0 pixels.
Yes, exactly. So we can do top 0 pixels. And then we can do, yeah, so the left and right. There's other ways you can do this too. I think you can do like width 100%. Yeah, and so you can do left and right 0, or you can do like width 100%. I don't think it matters. We do have default margin on the page though, which is why we have that gap on the left there. So to get rid of that, we can do a few things. So one is set our box sizing to border box, and then do HTML and body. Oh, cool. We can set the font. Fun. So I'm setting every element to be box sizing border box, which is just like our reset that we normally do. And then I'm targeting both the HTML and the body tags to have margin 0, padding 0. And then I'm just like globally setting the font to be something different that ChatGPT recommended. So we can just see what that looks like. Okay. Notice like our content's now kind of hitting the edges, which doesn't look super great. So we could set padding if we wanted to, or we could like wrap all of these p tags in something like a div. And then give that div a class like container or something. And then add that class and do like padding 20 pixels or something, so that our content's not so scrunched on the sides. Okay, all right, so we've got a pretty ugly looking nav bar so far. We can't see. So here's our GitHub thing, and then our link, and then our other icon. We can't see them because of their color. So we could probably, what would be easy is we could, on the nav, we could say that the color of like everything should be white, potentially. Yeah. So looks a little better. Okay. So if we want to get, so these are like scrunched up at the top of our nav, the top left of our nav. So if we want to get these positioned a little bit better, what might we do to get them like on this line here? So like vertically centered.
Flexbox.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, we're not going to deal with like position fixed or anything like that. We're going back to our Flexbox ways. And so yeah, we'll use Flexbox to make this stuff look better. So we got nav here, and we've got the class nav. So we could change the nav to be display flex. Which isn't conflicting with our like position fix stuff or anything. So we can make the container display flex though, which is going to change the items within it mainly. And then, so we've done that, and then we just need to say, okay, what do we need to add to this to get those to be vertically centered?
Align items.
Justify.
Yeah, good. Okay. All right. So it's one of those two, right? And so until you get used to it, you can just like make them both center and then like turn one off and see if it's doing what you want. But in this case, it's what is the default direction for flex?
Left to
Row,
right.
yeah. Yeah, left
Oh.
to right or row or horizontal, right? And so justify content is in the main axis, so left to right. And so if we said center, that'd be horizontally centered. So it'd be like in the middle. And then the cross axis is align items up and down in this case. And so we want them vertically centered. So in this case, the right answer is align items center, which you need to spell correctly. And so, yeah, now we're getting our stuff vertically centered, which is nice. I don't like how close it is on the left and the right. We may want to spread these things out. So if we wanted to do that in a real quick and hacky way, we could say justify content, which is our left and right. And we could say space around or space between or space evenly or something like that. This still isn't going to look super great, but we'll deal with it. We'll just take it as like this for now. Because we're running out of time and we're not going to be able to make this look too pretty. Okay. Just so you guys know, this contact page is set up. It is a link. And so we said the ahref is contact.html, which is a relative link. And I made a contact.html page. There's nothing on it. So let me just put some stuff in it. And I'm just going to do an H1 of hello world. But I have linked to that page. So that page is a sibling of me in my file structure. And so I can link to it by just saying, hey, go to contact. It's right next to me. So I don't need like a path or anything like that. So I've got that ahref, and if I click on it, you can see it changed the URL. Changed the URL to go to contact.html, which only has hello world on it, but it like went to that page. And then I have my browser back button. It knows where I was, and so I can hit back and go back to my normal page. So like your browser back and forward and linking like is all just works. You just link to something and you click it and it'll take you there. So that's how we can make like multi-page sites, is by like we can build out like the home page and the contact page and the order page, in our code by just making more than one HTML file and then just link to them with ahrefs. And you can link from anywhere on the page, but typically you'll do it from the nav. So that's how you do that, just so you know. Because on Saturday we'll be making a multi-page site. But shoot, we're out of time. The next thing I wanted to show you is, so there's two main types of positions that you'll find yourself using. Fixed and then absolute. Absolute's the other position. So we saw that we can make stuff overlap with fixed, like we made our chat icon kind of overlap. but we were only sort of setting that position based on the whole viewport. So we were only setting the chat based off just like the whole page. If you wanted to build something like, for example, like you guys have all seen notification kind of icons in like the top and like your nav, typically like an inbox. And you will typically see often like a badge up here with like, maybe it's just like a dot, meaning you have some notification, or sometimes it'll actually be a number, like you have 7 notifications or something. When you want to build something like that, the way it looks is there's like a little dot that's like overlapping and on top of this icon. But you don't want like, so when you're trying to do that, when you're trying to take 2 elements, one is this icon, this bell, and the other is like the badge with the count within it. When you're trying to position those things next to each other or like on top of each other, you're not trying to do that against the whole viewport. You're trying to do that against each other. And so there's an additional type called position absolute, which allows you to then position yourself relative to another element that's positioned relative. So that may not make sense what I just said, but essentially you would have this box here, and then you could say, hey, put the little badge at the top right of this smaller box that is containing both the bell and the badge. And so you just have a little more control over of like being very specific about how you want to align things at a particular spot on the page, not like relative to the entire page. So you'll learn about that in the homework. And there's also another type that's called position sticky that you'll come across as well, that you'll use it occasionally, but it's not as fundamental or as important as learning position fix and position absolute. So yeah, enjoy the homework. That's it on curriculum. Like, there's nothing else to learn. So everything on Saturday will be trying to apply what you've learned so far. And then we'll have our break. So thank you all.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
In reference to the HTML code on the P tags, how did you get your text to stack? Because mine is just going one long sentence of the lorem.
I had the same problem. It's under your view settings on VS Code.
Okay.
Oh,
Called word wrap.
Yeah, I also, are you talking about in the HTML or just in the code?
In the code.
Oh, okay, yeah. I have like yeah, it's whoever said that is correct. I have a setting where if something gets too long, it'll push it. Like mine's actually putting it on a new line automatically,
Right.
which is a setting. I'll actually, this is probably a good thing to do on Saturday. I have a ton of extensions installed in like settings and things like that. And so I can share what I would recommend you guys install at this point. And I can also share, I can actually share like a file that has settings so that you guys can have all the same ones as me. So I'll do that on Saturday.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you all. Have a good rest of your week. And I'll see you all on Saturday.
See you Saturday. Good night.
Thank you.
Night.